Today on the podcast, we have Wendy Beckman, professor of aerospace at Middle Tennessee State University. When you said I had that discussion with my children, I thought the discussion was, I'd be flying for an airline making $500,000 if it weren't for you, kid.
The FAA is a little antiquated with the way they do this.
Just this?
Right, just this, everything, right? And it is true that you can cheat.
Oh, tell us how to cheat. That's what I need to know.
Wants to know about that, right?
We have drones or UASs that are very large. Really, what we also have in this new world is people in a simulated environment controlling the aircraft that could literally be 2,000 miles away.
Correct. It's a brave new world.
It is. And so some of these people, let's just say they're in St. Louis, Missouri. They could literally be sitting in St. Louis, Missouri, drive to work, go through all the checkpoints, go sit down and do their hours in their virtual cockpit where their head, their space, their mind are looking down at some Middle Eastern country who's an enemy, and they spend all their time interacting with, communicating with, seeing, watching, all that. And then after that shift is over, they then come out, do whatever, and then walk out of a building when their head has been in the Middle East, and they're all but their body's been in the Middle East, and then they go to school, pick up their kid, drive to McDonald's, and go to soccer practice.
Yeah.
I mean, that's very disembodied, disoriented.
It is.
Because when even flying is kind of disoriented because your body's trying to catch up with the clock. But the idea that you spend all your headspace in a different place with different people through that technology, yet at the same time you are literally here. That's
yeah. The psychology of it is very interesting, and there's definitely been case studies of people that were involved in a military strike of some sort, right?
Yes.
So they go into this shift, and as part of that, there's an attack on something. They do a bombing run. Somebody's killed, and literally then their shift ends. And they go home.
Yes.
And that's a very different world than traditional deployment where you're in a unit and you're surrounded by people that have that same lived experience.
Yes.
And there's the catharsis of debriefing that and
maybe having to go to the bar or going to see somebody or your commanders, your friends. I've been in combat before. Be careful. I'm looking out after your back. Not I just climbed into my Toyota Camry and going to McDonald's with the kids. School
to get it's very disjointed and disorienting for people, and I'm not sure what the answer to that is, but I think it's definitely something to be looked at on, like, okay, how do we recreate more of the traditional experience for these people so that there is a debriefing, and maybe the military has that now. That's been some years ago that I've read about the issues people were having with that, and go home. How was your day? Well. Here's what happened in my day, right? It's like, wow, that's quite something.
And then even to take it further into the psychology, often the aircraft, these UASs, are loitering over an area, following people for a while, looking for patterns of behavior. So let's say there's a bad guy out there. You'll know the bad guy's wife or wives and children and bodyguards and whatever. So you get to know them as a distant person. You see patterns. I would say they're friends. You're not empathetic, but you know them. So whenever a strike does happen, they are more humanized than all of a sudden just a dot or target, or something.
On.
And so that's the other part. Okay, so UAS, back when it first started coming out, and there were these cockpits they climbed into, these virtual cockpits. They only allowed officers to fly them, and now enlisted folks get to fly them. So it's kind of interesting how the flight crews used to have enlisted folks on it for the military, and then all the enlisted folks have left, and you only have, 2 officers flying.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden you had the opposite happen, where now you have enlisted folks flying UASs.
When it very first started, there was a lot of people very upset because they'd have a Navy or an Air Force pilot slot.
Yes.
They'd get through pilot training, and yet they would be slotted over to UAS.
Yes.
And it's like, whoa, no. Like, I want to be flying airplanes. So people were very upset about that.
Yes. I need to be Tom Cruise on Top Gun 1.
Right, and they saw a civilian career following their military career.
Yes.
So that was predicated on the military career actually flying airplanes and building flight time.
I need twin engine hours.
Right, to move to the civilian world after they got out. And it's like, wow, this is how I had my life lined up, and now I'm going to be sitting in this box flying this UAS is not going to count for anything. People were very upset.
And the military says, this is what we told you to do. Read your contract, do as we say.
Right, and again, I'm not up on the current situation on where that all lies, but definitely early on there was some consternation over that.